Welcome to One Moment After the End, a podcast in support of the webcomic of the same name. This is a special re-recording to improve the quality of some of my first podcasts. As this is a re-recording, I've compressed several of the original podcasts down in size. The next podcast in sequence should be Podcast 7, so new listeners who do not want to suffer through my early podcasts should skip to that one after this. Of course, the early podcasts might have some entertainment value for just the sheer agony of how bad they are. Because this is a re-recording and meant to make the archives a bit easier to listen to, I've decided not to do as much post-production work on these first shows. Some of the voices of various characters may therefore sound a little different than they appear in the later recordings. I'll be recording this as one long single recording, but we'll break it up into 4 episodes, which will replace the original 1 through 4 episodes in the archives. That means episodes 5 and 6 will be the original recordings and be out of sequence. First, some business. The URL for One Moment After the End is at cosmofur.hop2.org, and you can reach us at onemomentafter@gmail.com. It is my intent to keep this podcast reasonably family-friendly and perhaps work-safe, but the webcomic version is not. You should not browse the images on the website where children or your boss might see. Without giving away any spoilers, the nature of some of the main characters result in situations where they are wearing minimal to no clothing, and while in a podcast audio, the clothing state of characters is ignored or easily overlooked, in the visual media of a webcomic, it is much greater immediate impact. Welcome to One Moment After the End. Perhaps it might have been interesting to be a fly on the wall in the small office, but then again it would have been a lonely life, as no flies, ants, gnats, or any other small crawly thing had ever been in that room before, or was likely to be there in the future. Nevertheless, a fly-eye view would have let you ogle the rather cute-looking, if tired, bunny that was standing by her desk, which other than a few bookshelves was the only important piece of furniture in the room. Now, when I say bunny, I'm not talking about a cute, lupine creature with fur and a tendency to nibble away at backyard gardens, nor the semi-sexist reference of bikini-clad girls in 1960s beach movies. No, standing at 5'4" was a human, or at least humanoid woman, wearing a tight-fitting, but in her mind, conservative jumpsuit. What made her a bunny was her 2-feet-long ears and jutting muzzle, and a nearly invisibly fine, short velvet-like fur that covered her body from head to toe. If you asked what she was, the woman would have given you a very strange look, and said she was human, and would have been insulted if you pressed the question any further. Not that you could have asked her anything, as an impossible fly, and a good thing too, as she was not in a good mood today. Her boss had thrown her another last-minute job, and her temper was now very short. This short temper was not made happier when her assistant slipped in the room with a clear, "got another problem to dump on you" look on his face. The assistant was not another rabbit. His ears were shorter, more pointed, and his muzzle was sloped down further from his forehead. Differently, he was a cat. Spotting the Catman, the first woman snapped a question at him before he could say whatever was on his mind. Perhaps it was an attempt to delay the bad news. Well, whatever it was. "Eric, where is the bio on the Hecklebomb kids?" The assistant, Eric, replied in as soothing a tone as he could manage. "Here's a report on her husband, Jarek. The rest should pop up on your desk row 3. Then Eric did not pause for Ellen to reply, but continued on his real reason he was moving through the room at a near run. "I just got a memo from building maintenance. They overscheduled the waiting rooms. We need to find someplace else for the meeting." The female rabbit, whose name I should mention is Ellen, sat down at her desk, her eyes rolling in exasperation. "What? Jolan is arriving any second." Eric spun on his heels, his message delivered. He now ran back out the door as fast as he had came in. "I'm on it," he called back over his shoulder at Ellen, and he was gone. Ellen sat at her desk, took a calming breath. Other than some bland paper documents, the only thing on her desk was some sort of computer display. There was no keyboard or other input device. Ellen did not need such things. She glanced at the screen, and by some hidden means it knew what information she wanted to see. Graphs flowed, long paragraphs of text scrolled, and pictures showed on the profiles of strangers flicking by. It seemed impossible that Ellen could have really absorbed data moving that fast, but she seemed satisfied with whatever she was seeing. Looking down, Ellen thought to herself, "Another rush job. 20 years? Tomorrow. Oh, I've been a greeter for 20 years. Counting my time here, I'm now what? 67? Damn it. I think I worked through my birthday again. Not even a card. If you were that fly on the wall still, it would not be strange if you chose this moment to fall off in surprise, because no sane person looking at Ellen would guess her to be many years past 20. Yet, perhaps, if you looked in her dark eyes, you might just see a hint of the years they had seen. Ellen looked at the display again. Eric wasn't back. She could pause and wait for him. That would have been the right thing to do. But this was the last session for the day, and she wanted to get it over with. A counter dominated the display now and started to count down. Ellen let it drop to 0, and glanced at the empty chair across from her. It wasn't empty anymore. A foggy shape formed in the air. It was a skeleton of a muzzled female figure, covered with a hazy cloud which thickened. Soon the nude body of a bare-faced woman could be seen through the haze. The newly formed bear woman did not move, and Ellen waited. There was more unseen changes taking place in the mists, which soon thickened and grew more solid, draping over the woman's form as a gray-white robe. Ellen sat watching the process with detached familiarity. Suddenly the new woman stood up, knocking her chair backwards, and gasped, a long, snorkish gasp, like a baby filling its lungs for the first time. At that same moment, Ellen said simply, "Welcome back."